Dear participants, good morning from India, and here is Gurpinder. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer, the South African Cemetery Association, for holding such a wonderful virtual conference on the climate change issues. And I also thanks for this organizer for giving me an opportunity to talk about gender, climate change, and health related issues during pandemic. So let me share my presentation, and then we will talk about the scenarios of gender, climate change, and the women's health issue during pandemic. So gender, there is a gender issues and climate change issues and health related issue women during the pandemic. First of all, we should know that United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that women face a greater risk and bear greater responsibility for the effect of climate change, as we know all. Because we will discuss later on this, and this is especially true of health impacts which make climate change recurring risks of gender-based health inequalities. According to WHO and American College of Western and Gynecologists stated that the women are particularly at risk due to biologically, politically, and cultural factors that have researchers shown. So these are the estimated 1.3 billion people in low middle income countries live below poverty line, and among them, 70% of are women. So these are the some key points area which show that the women face uh, bad effect of climate change, which causes their health implications. This economic also benefit also shows that however there are still many gender gap in based in health disparities, as researchers show that. So we should know first how these implications are based on the gender roles, gender responsibilities, and gender behavior, because these relationships are important factor which determining in risk and ability to adopt the health impacts of climate change. The vulnerability of women and men to impact of extreme weather event is determined not only biologically but also diversity of their social roles, responsibilities, gender behavior rules, etc., etc. So as you different these roles and responsibility exist in our societies, and expecting women to fulfill their roles and responsibility as a caregiver of their family often place a heavy burden on them during critical weather conditions or other crises. The expected role of men as economic provider and in their families, and often as additional burden on their after their years. So it is a gender role that the women have to perform their roles in inner space or domestic sphere, and men will be a breadwinner. So that is because that gender defined, or there is a patriarchy which all the roles are happening. There is a next issue, climate and health. Climate is a constantly changing, as we know. Last 10 years or 1 decade, we are seeing tsunami, uh, earthquake, and there is a heavy rainfall in India also, in Uttarakhand. Many times we have seen that tsunami in Kerala and the eastern and western side also they are. So because of the disturbing of weather condition or climate change affect the environment too. So now there is a strong evidence that human activities, particularly burning of mineral oils, is the responsible for global warming. Recently, that This affect also weather pattern and extreme weather events also that I have discussed now. This document, which adopted by the IPCC, Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change, in which climate change refer to any climate change over time, either as a result of biodiversity, human activities, and this practice differ from the adopted by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which define that the climate change as a climate change causally, directly or indirectly by human activities that alter the structure of Earth's atmosphere in addition to observe natural weather varieties. So the thing is that when human being uh, observe or do some kind of activity which impact or affect the weather condition or environment condition, that is happening to the climate change. So the IPCC state that the climate change is expected to increase their threat to human health. The research show that these climate change expected to increase threat to human health, and climate change can affect people's health lives through a variety of means. So there are heat waves, floods, hurricanes that I have stated that, and its effect on the human being and as animal also. So later we will discuss gender and health. The different role and relationships of men and women in given culture set by those gender norms, and a relationship also led to a gender inequality, that is differences between men and women who place the group in the orderly fashion often to the determine of the others. The fact that worldwide women are at an average of less than men is an example of gender inequality. Both gender differences and gender inequality can create inequality between men and women in health and healthcare and access to healthcare. So, for example, a woman cannot get health care because she need because the local custom prevent her from going to clinic alone. A teenager die in accident because of trying to live up his peace. Expectation that young men should be brave to take risks, including on the road. In all of these cases, sexual orientations value as well as the result of behavior that affect the health. So these are the some gender rules, norms, and activities that affect the negative health effect on gender inequality and gender differences. Because, but they are not a statics, but they can be changed. So there are some international policy, which there are some international policy that WHO identified also the health impact on climate change and environment change as one of the top priority for the next 5 years, and sought to place well of being women, children, youth in the global health development center. So in continue process, there are sustainable development goals defined by the UN in 2015, 17 sustainable goals. First one is poverty, to eradicate the poverty, to eradicate the poverty. So eradication of poverty and the fifth goal in SDG, gender equality and sustainability is 11, and 13 one is the climate action. So opportunity to link these different objects through mitigation and indicators that this sector have been significantly lost during the implementation of SDG. So there are some conventions, just like a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So and United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, and UNFCCC Resolution 21 requires a gender action plan to incorporate gender perspective into all aspects of mitigation, adoption of power technology, and finance. So all through significant process has been made on international policy stages. There are implementation challenges for the policy framework. So there are, I have said that the climate change is the world's most largest challenge in 21st century, and it affects the region across region, generation, ages, classes, and income groups and gender. So IPCC is clear about the people who are already at risk and marginalized will also have a significant impact. So both women and men working in natural resources such as agriculture may be affected, as International Labour Organization stated that in their research. So difference between men and women can be also seen in a different roles, responsibility, decision making, access to the world and natural resources, and opportunity and needs held by both men and women. So globally, women has a less access than men to services as well as land, debt, agriculture, inputs, decision-making structure, technology, training, and extension services that will increase their ability to adopt a climate change. Women as a vulnerable. Vulnerability of women to climate change is due to many factors: social, economic, cultural. 70% of 1.3 billion people living in poverty, that I have stated later on. And 40% of poorest households are headed by the women. And women are the world leading food producer, 50 to 80%. So especially in rural areas where they carry the heavy burden of the domestic water supply, cooking power, fodder, and wood and heat up, as well as food security in the Near East, women provide 50% of the agriculture cost, and they are especially faced with time-consuming and labor-intensive tasks performed by the hand or by using simple tools. In the earth, number of people living in a rural area has been declining in the recent decades. Women are mainly engaged in substantive farming, especially farming, poultry, and small livestock for domestic use. And women have limited access to natural resource management and services also. And they play inactive roles in decision making, but do not engage in sharing of environment benefits. As a result, women are less able to cope with the climate change because they are have limited access to management and services. And during such weather such as drought and floods, women often work hard to earn living at home. We have seen this in many researchers and many floods and tsunami also. This will leave a less time for women to receive training and education. In third world, the rate of illiterate women were more than 50% in 2000 and compared it to 41% of men. So when combined with the insensibility of resources and decision-making process, limited mobility in many societies, social and cultural norms, and responsibility of child care prevent from women moving or seeking refuge in the place of working in the event of disaster. So women in many developing countries experience gender equality in relation of human, political, and social status, land owning, housing condition, exposure to violence, education, and health. So, the climate change will be an additional pressure that will increase the vulnerability of women because they have to obtain drinking water, firewood, etc., for their livelihood, for the house. And it is well known that during conflict, women face increasing domestic violence and sexual harassment and human trafficking and rape also. So, how we improving women's adaptation to climate change? There are some points. Key adaptation systems should have identified and addressed the gender impact of climate change, especially in the areas of related to water, food security, agriculture, energy, health, disaster management, and conflict. So the issue related to gender issue associated with climate change adjustment, such as inequality in access to resources, including depth, extension, and training services, information technology should be considered. So women's priority needs must be reflected in the development and funding programs. So women should be involved in the national and local level decision-making decision regarding the allocation of resources for climate change program. So organization or sponsor should be consider women issues when developing and introducing climate change technology, etc. So by this we can improve the women's adoption climate. There are issues gender and climate change. There are some points. How to strengthen climate action by promoting gender equality. Women and men face climate change differently as gender inequality continue worldwide, affecting the ability of individual and community to adopt. And recognizing the important role of women as decision makers, stakeholders, educators, caregivers, and experts in all the field of level of can lead effective long-term solution to climate change. So, women have shown that they are leading the way toward equitable and sustainable climate change solution. And global discussion have increasingly demonstrated a growing understanding gender condition climate change making over the past 80 years. The progressive advancement of gender equality in COP21 can help achieve the effective climate action. And the impact of climate change on women also has illustrated that women are the often responsible for collecting and producing food, fetching water, and obtaining fuel for cooking. With the climate change, these tasks are becoming more and more difficult. Extreme weather events such as drought, flood have a significant impact on the poor and vulnerable. 70% of the world are women, poor are women. So as women are equally affected by the climate change and they play a key role in climate change and mitigation. So women has also knowledge and understanding need to adopt the change environment and to come up with effective solution. So the dimension of knowledge and knowledge of women represent as a more important opportunity to create effective climate change solution for the benefit to all. So what needs to be done? Because United Nations climate change negotiation, which not have done document and gender relation decision until 2008, have recently shown a greater understanding of the linkage between gender equality and the response to climate change. Lima work on gender program adopted by COP20 in 2014, for the example, promote gender equality and implementation of gender responsive climate policy. And the result of gender response at COP21 in Paris set the standard for usage. National and international level, key forward steps include policy formulation and planning, program and project, as well as funding, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. In particularly, investment in participation, multi-stakeholder, and multi-sector. So gender climate change program can help increase or develop a broader approach that incorporate gender sensitivity and build a human knowledge and circumstances. And it is important to ensure equal space and resources for women and men to participate in decision making and action at all levels. Where their finance should be accessible to both men and women and is designed to generate integrated benefit, not integrated. So there is a patriarchal policy and climate change science because some feminists argue that the debate on climate change is not only dominated by men, but also largely based on masculine principle, which limit climate change discussion into a technological solution and create inconsistency in mitigate climate change. That Jabin in 2014 stated in his research. So Jabin highlighted that the impact of local practice that show power relation and define women, and humility and ever hidden power relation that set the policy for climate change and science have led with Tona called decision justice. So there are some researchers from as a McGregor criticized, and he proved that by creating climate change as an issue of complex ethical science and environment protection, it is a maintained within the traditional domain of strong masculinity. So see, so there are some issues, and finally we are concluding this: key low-income countries such as India have important social, spectral, political, and environment reality that make our citizens, but especially women, vulnerable to climate change. So, although gender has become increasingly integrated into our international climate policy, progress has been shown in India, reducing gender-based health inequality and involving women, reducing climate change, adaptability, and reducing disaster risk management. So, this process can be done through effective investment strategy, encouraging policymakers and health and family welfare departments, etc., etc. So in addition, the need to adhere the monitoring mechanism promoted by the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, and the Sendai Congress, important to tell the complex link between the poverty, social discrimination, and climate change that threaten to promote gender-based health disparities. However, there is still a general lack of research on sexual and gender differences at risk of, as well as the impact of climate change, especially health-related impacts. So dealing with social and gender dimension of climate change represent many insurmountable challenges, and it calls for gender mainstreaming in climate change response activity, sustainable and equitable development, a clear focus on the adoption and mitigation, a strong commitment to resources, and empowering people to build their own capacity for self-reliance. So there are recognizing these differences is a necessary and important factor in any potential effort to address the health consequences of climate change. So gender-based research needs to be better understand and health impacts of climate change on typical event and extreme events. So there is a need for development of gender responsive and accessible health services that reach the poorest population, therefore thereby addressing the particular health needs of women and men through their entire life cycle. So uh, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and once again I thank you, the organizer, South African Cemetery Association, for giving opportunity to talk about the gender climate change and the health impacts of during the pandemic. So thank you so much, and giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, organizer.